Are we solving symptoms with shiny gadgets instead of root causes? And is biohacking becoming a digital version of Big Pharma? Well, let's unpack this shift and what it means for the future of wellness.
Welcome to the Primal Shift podcast.
From a historical perspective, biohacking meant ancestral health and cutting-edge tools and bringing them together in the sense of, offering you self-empowerment through lifestyle optimization, sleep, food, movement, light. But I've realized that it has become, biohacking has become very commercialized and gadgetized. And I realized this already over the course of the past few months, but I just recently attended Dave Asprey's biohacking conference in Austin, Texas. And I've noticed a huge focus on devices and consumer technology. Nearly every booth was pushing a quote-unquote solution that costs a lot of money, but demands no real habit change. And so I couldn't help but draw the parallels between biohacking and Big Pharma. Like with traditional pharma, it's like, hey, take a pill to feel better without changing behavior. Modern biohacking, I feel like, has become a wear this gadget or take a hack with the same outcome. And I think it's a slippery slope. If we start using tools as band-aids instead of using them as catalysts to implement meaningful and sustainable lifestyle choices. And just to give you a couple of examples, blue light blocking glasses, they're a great tool if you cannot avoid exposing yourself to blue light, especially in the evening before bedtime. But if you wear blue light blocking glasses while scrolling on TikTok in bed on your phone, it kind of defeats the purpose. Just, get rid of your phone, stop scrolling on TikTok, and you don't need blue light blocking glasses. Or change to different light bulbs, just turn off the lights, instead of wearing blue light blocking glasses. Or there is a device I ran into a couple of years ago. It's called Hep-B. It's a wearable that you wear around your neck, and it's supposed to stimulate emotional balance. So you run around and you feel like, oh, I'm drinking or I'm social right now. And first of all, I don't think it works. I tried it. I felt nothing. But even if it did, rather than addressing your stress, your relationships, your habits, you hang something around your neck to impact how you feel and your emotional balance, or gadgets that promise deep sleep while you're pounding caffeine at 4 p.m. and ignoring circadian rhythms. There are a lot of tools that do have a purpose, that can help you in certain cases, but they should mostly help you to adopt better lifestyle choices and implement lifestyle changes rather than continuing with making poor choices and just trying to mitigate the consequences using biohacking tools. And obviously, if you've been following me for a while, you know that, a lot of people think I'm a biohacker, I'm an influencer. I promote products and gadgets, many of which I've used, I still use, but it's very easy to forget that, I review those things, I use certain things, maybe, to address a certain use case, to help me get over a hump, to help me implement something, and then I'm done using the tool. There are certain tools that I use a lot, like saunas and cold plunges. Now if I were to live somewhere where I had a natural body of water nearby that freezes in winter and I could just cold plunge in a lake that's nearby, I would do that instead of having a cold plunge at home. But I don't, so I use a cold plunge. I use a sauna.
We have to interrupt this episode for an important message from your feet. They've had enough of being cramped into traditional shoes. Regular shoes can wreck your back, joints, and overall foot health by squeezing your toes and disconnecting you from the ground. That's why I switched to Beluva minimalist shoes, and the difference has been incredible. These shoes give me a perfect, natural connection to the ground whether I'm walking, sprinting, or lifting heavy. My back pain disappeared, my athletic performance has improved dramatically, and they're comfortable enough to wear all day. Plus, my toes are finally pointing in the direction they're supposed to. Check them out at peluva.com and use code KUMMER for 15% off. That's peluva.com. And now back to the episode.
There are certain things that I do use frequently because I have no other choice, or the choice would be, moving somewhere which is not possible right now, or it would, defeat some of the things that we have here, like raising livestock. I don't want to move to a cold climate if it makes it easier for me here to raise food that to keep me healthy and or to keep the family healthy. And so there are certain things where, yeah, it makes sense to use them, but there should be supportive tools, And the problem is that a lot of people think that, or that a lot of influencers, market devices as solutions rather than support tools. And I'm sure I've done this in the past as well, but I just want to reiterate, whenever I talk about something, carefully think about, okay, how can I use this as a tool to help me make better lifestyle choices, to improve my health without using them as crutches. You cannot buy health, you can only implement health. You can do things that make you healthier. You can use tools to support that. But you need foundational behaviors, sleep hygiene, real food, movement, sunlight. Without those, no biohack, no gadget, no tool is going to make you healthy or keep you healthy. And there are even certain cases where, the overuse of wearables. And for example, if you're watching this, on YouTube, you can see that I wear the latest, the Whoop MG. That's another example that I've noticed firsthand in the past with my wife in particular, where, waking up in the morning and seeing a red recovery would stress her out. That defeats the purpose. Using tools like Whoop or Aura Ring or, CGMs or other things is meant to help you, to give you information so you can make better lifestyle choices. But if they induce anxiety or trigger anxiety, then they're of questionable use, and you might be better off not using them at all. So I challenge you to really think about, or other influences as well, are we enabling passive health? I don't think we should. That's a very slippery slope. And I'm not anti-tech, but I think technology has to augment and not replace. And there are certain areas, I've alluded to it before, where biohacking tech really shines, if you want to call it tech, like a cold plunge. Consider it a habit builder. Consider it something that challenges you, that makes you more resilient, that helps you implement habits, even if they're difficult in the beginning. They're not supposed to be a dopamine fix, like scrolling on Instagram. If that's the reason why you cold plunge, to get that quick fix of, chemicals rushing through your bloodstream, then you might want to reconsider either, why you use them and how you use them, or if you should be using them at all. Continuous glucose monitor is another great example that can help you learn about your food habits, but they should not enable you to micromanage every single meal forever, where you feel bad if you see a spike in glucose. So you really have to be careful and differentiate, what do you get out of using a specific tool, and does it help you? Light therapy is another great example that can help people with disrupted circadian, exposure. But ideally, it should be part of a broader fix. And my rule of thumb is, if a hack makes you more mindful and engaged, great. If it lets you keep doing dumb stuff with less guilt, not so great. Overall, I think that biohacking needs a reset. We need less dependency and more agency. And I want, ask yourself this question: am I using this to support a better lifestyle or to avoid changing? And I'll challenge you, identify one gadget or hack you use as a crutch, and then replace it, even if it's only temporarily, with a lifestyle-based alternative. And then if you're on social media, share the results, tag, Primer Shift, if you're on Instagram, or shoot me an email. I'd really like to hear from you. What have you identified that you're using as a crutch, that where you instead should be making a better lifestyle choice, or where you started using a crutch or a gadget to implement change, but the change just you never followed through. You just kept using it as a crutch. Biohacking isn't about escaping biology. It's about working with it. And so I hope this episode helped you to be more mindful, to think about what biohacking means, what it means to you, how you can leverage certain tools, And when it's maybe time to cut the cord and to go back to the basics, am I really benefiting from wearing those blue light blocking glasses every single night while scrolling on my phone? Or might I be better off just to put the phone away after 5 p.m.? And there's so many other cases we could talk about forever, giving specific examples. But if you're really mindful, if you're present, really think about, what do you do every single day? What biohacks do you use? What gadgets do you use? What crutches do you use? And then think or ask yourself, are those really helping to implement change? Or am I just using them as a crutch? And with that, we're going to wrap it up. I hope you liked this episode. If you did, share it with someone who could use it. Until next time.